We are live. This is Jerry Franklin Poe coming at you for another episode of the 31 Days of Sharing. That's right, folks. We are live. I see we are broadcasting on all the streams at the moment. Live. Jerry Franklin Poe, 31 Days of Sharing, Reluctant Success family. How are you this morning? I'm so glad to be back with you today. And we are talking still following up. Where's my book? I almost misplaced my book. Here's the book right here. The How to Win Friends, Influence People. The last time I was with you on this book, I was talking about the fundamental techniques for handling people, and there was one principle left that we haven't touched. We talked about the complaining, the criticizing, and the sincere and honest feedback or sincere and honest appreciation. And this last one is about what do other people want, understanding how to connect what you want to what other people want in order to be able to influence behavior. So there was a quote that stuck out when I opened the book up this morning, and it just hit me, and it said, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. And it's interesting because sometimes people upset the same folks that they're trying to get cooperation from, which is counterproductive. So this section, these notes, these ideas I'm going to be sharing with you today, things that I had underlined, picked out of the book, are going to be useful in order to help us get cooperation and understanding from the other people, other person that we're communicating with, other person that we're dealing with, whether it be your family members, your children, your coworkers, people that you're dealing with in business, clients, customers, or what have you. So one of the things that the book shared that I thought was interesting, it said, the only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. The only way to influence people, other people, is to talk about what they want and how to get it. And there was a quote from a gentleman by the name of Harry Overstreet. He wrote a book called Influencing Human Behavior. What he stated as saying is action springs out of what we fundamentally desire. And the best piece of advice which can be given to the would-be persuader, whether in business, in the home, in school, in politics, is this. First arouse in the other person an eager want. This is really critical. He who can do this has the whole world with him, and he who cannot walks alone. So the person, whether it be male, female, whatever, because we talked about how this book uses a lot of male pronouns to represent mankind or people. So any person who can develop this ability to arouse in another person the eager want. So what that means is to stimulate in that person the desires that they have and how those desires connect to what you want to accomplish. So how they can get from working with you, how they can get from cooperating with you the exact desires that they want to accomplish themselves. Andrew Carnegie was quoted as saying, the only way to influence people is to talk in terms of what the other person wants. So you want to speak to them in order to get agreement from them about how what you want ties into what they want. And I thought this was interesting that Henry Ford, if you're hearing these people, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, these are all the successful people at that time period, but also in our society. When we think about the founders of industry, when you hear Ford, you know that was one of the top car companies, and still, Ford's name is on so many buildings, and I think the family still owns the Detroit Lions. And Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie out of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University, Carnegie Hall in New York City. That's all that stuff has his name on it. So Henry Ford said, if there's any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as your own. So success in life, success in business is the ability to see things from the other person's side, the ability to see things from the other person's angle, and to be able to hold in your mind how their needs tie into your needs, how their desires tie into your desires. So be able to have your focus on what you want and be also see what they want. And it's interesting how in our society today, sometimes people are so polarized because they can only see things from their perspective. And it's almost like we lost sight of the ability to see things from another person's perspective. And if we spent more time seeing things not just from our side but from the other person's side, we can get a lot more done, because that's when you can actually see the intertwined matching of desire. Like there's some point where what you want and what the other person want, there's some level of intersection. You might not agree on everything, but there's some place that there's a connection. This extraction from the book I thought was interesting, and those who've known me for a long time in business and know my training, you know this is the foundation of all I talk about when it comes to sales. It says, if salespeople can show us how their services or merchandise will help us solve our problems, they won't need to sell us, we'll buy. All of my sales philosophies, all of my sales training for the last 16 plus years of teaching and speaking professionally has all been about the idea that people want to buy but they don't want to be sold, that people want to buy but they don't want to be sold. So if all we have to do is take the responsibility of connecting the dots, showing them how what we have solves what they want, or how it gives them what they want, how it solves a problem for them. So salespeople who can show how their services or their merchandise can solve a person's problem, the person, this is right, this is where I'm getting it from. So people wonder, like, where does Jerry get his stuff from? I'm pulling back the covers today and I'm showing you this all came from a book that was written 90 years ago, is where a lot of this stuff came from. And in the book, there's a section where Dale Carnegie himself, he says, if you can only get one thing from this book, if you can only get one thing, it is this. He says, if out of reading this book you get just one thing, an increased tendency to think always in terms of the other person's point of view and see things from their angle. If you get that one thing out of this book, it may easily prove to be one of the building blocks of your career. And my career in terms of speaking and in sales has been based on this principle. Even when I'm in front of the room speaking, before I even start the seminar, I walk around the event space just to see the stage from every person's point of view. Like, how is the last row? What does it look like on stage? Because I want to know what the audience sees when they see me up there. Like, I don't want to just see it from my view, because my view is different from their view. So in taking other people's perspective into account, if we did more of that, think about how the world would function if our focus wasn't us first, if it wasn't our state first, our country first, our neighborhood first, if it was all about how do we get other people's perspectives to not align with ours, but to have an understanding of their perspective. Because most of us want other people to understand us, but one of the keys to get people to understand us is to understand them first. So have the tendencies, it's increased tendency to think in terms of the other person's point of view. Quite interesting. And this is the things that I had underlined in the book when I read this, probably 15, 16, probably 20 years ago. I read this now, thinking about it. I know it's the early 2000s. And the principle here is all about the foundation of building up this eager want, building and arousing in a person an eager want. So I'll leave you with this last part. It says, when we have a bright idea, instead of making others think it's ours, why not let them cook and stir the idea themselves? They will then regard it as their own. They will like it and maybe eat a couple of helpings of it. So this concept is interesting because so often it's about credit. Everybody wants to get the credit, but what's more important, getting it done or getting the credit? And when a person resolves in their mind that if I can get my objective accomplished, and getting the objective accomplished is more important than getting the credit for the idea, a lot more can get done. So today I wanted to leave you with this principle number 3 from handling how fundamental techniques of handling people was arouse the other person in the other person, arouse their eager want. So find out what the other person wants. If you can stimulate in them what they want and how what they want connects to what you want, how do they win by you winning? How do they win by you winning? And this works for parents, like getting the person to see like how can they, like building in that person a desire to take action. Like one of the things he said in the book, and this is all from a positive perspective. This is not about manipulation. It's not about, mind control. It says, before you speak, pause and ask yourself, how can I make this person want to do it? And the only way you can get a person to want to do something is to show them how they win by doing it. So if the parents are trying to get the kids to go to bed, well, how does the kid win by going to bed on time? This was a game I used to play with myself to come up with creative ways to influence the behavior of my daughters by showing them how they benefit from doing what I need them to do. And it's phenomenal. It's really, I shouldn't say it's phenomenal. It's interesting what you can come up with when you start to think in terms of how do I build in the other person a desire to want to do it because they're doing it because they get something out of it themselves. They benefit from it themselves. And a lot of people use these principles and they use them in a negative way. You'll see cults are built off of this. The cult leader finds strategic ways to show people how they can benefit from their philosophies, benefit that person, and the people get so caught up in how they're getting something from the philosophies to the point they give over their will. Sometimes their free will gets taken away because they get so tied into what they think they're getting by following the philosophies. So these principles, of course, when I share this stuff, I'm only intending that our character takes over and our character uses it for good. So with that, my friends, I want you to remember to be valiant, be vigilant, and be victorious. Until next time.